Hey there, Roothaven Grounds family. I was browsing through a farmer's market last spring when I stumbled upon a tiny bottle of birch syrup with a price tag that made my jaw drop. $75 for 8 ounces. That's when I realized that while everyone knows about maple syrup, there's this whole hidden world of tree syrups out there that most Americans have never even heard of. And trust me, once you learn about these liquid treasures, you'll never look at the trees in your backyard the same way again. Let's start with the one that sent me down this rabbit hole: birch syrup. This stuff comes from tapping birch trees, primarily paper birch and yellow birch, and it's got this complex, almost savory flavor that's nothing like maple. Think caramel meets molasses with a hint of spice. But here's the kicker. It takes about 100 to 150 gallons of birch sap to make just 1 gallon of syrup. That's why you're looking at anywhere from $20 to $40 per 8-ounce bottle, and sometimes even more. The reason for that insane concentration ratio? Birch sap has a much lower sugar content than maple sap, usually around 1% compared to maple's 2 to 3%. If you've got birch trees on your property, you can tap them in early spring, just as the ground thaws, but before the leaves emerge. The sap flows for a shorter window than maple, usually only 2 to 3 weeks, which adds to its rarity and value. Now, if you thought birch syrup was expensive, wait until you hear about black walnut syrup. This dark, intensely flavored syrup can run you anywhere from $30 to $60 for a small bottle, and it's so rare that even finding it can be a challenge. Black walnut syrup has this deep, earthy, almost butterscotch-like quality that's absolutely incredible, drizzled over ice cream or used in baking. The thing about black walnut trees is that they produce sap with an even lower sugar content than birch, and the tapping window is incredibly short. You need about 80 to 100 gallons of sap for 1 gallon of finished syrup. Most commercial producers are small operations, often just passionate homesteaders who've learned the craft. If you have black walnut trees, they're best tapped in late winter to early spring when temperatures fluctuate above and below freezing. Here's one that'll surprise you: sycamore syrup. American sycamore trees can be tapped just like maples, and they produce a light, delicate syrup with butterscotch notes. It's more common in the South, where sycamores thrive, but even there, most folks don't know about it. Prices typically range from $25 to $45 per pint when you can find it. Sycamores produce sap with about the same sugar content as sugar maples, so the yield is better than birch or walnut. The syrup has this beautiful golden color and a milder flavor than maple, making it perfect for people who find traditional maple syrup too strong. The trees tap well from late winter through early spring, and they're incredibly prolific producers once they get going. Now, hickory syrup is different from all the others I've mentioned because it's not technically made from sap. Instead, it's made by boiling hickory bark to extract the flavors, then adding sugar to create a syrup. But it belongs on this list because it's a traditional tree syrup that most Americans have never experienced. Expect to pay around $15 to $25 for an 8-ounce bottle. The flavor is smoky, rich, and intensely hickory forward, perfect for barbecue glazes or adding depth to fall desserts. If you're interested in making this at home, you'll need to sustainably harvest bark from shagbark hickory in particular, as it naturally sheds in strips. Never strip bark from a living tree in a way that would damage it. This is more of a foraging project than a tapping endeavor, but it connects you to traditional foodways that have been around for centuries. Box elder trees are actually in the maple family, but hardly anyone taps them. That's really a shame because box elder syrup has a unique flavor profile that's earthier and, more mineral than traditional maple syrup. When you can find it, prices run about $20 to $35 per pint. The yield from box elder is comparable to sugar maple, requiring about 40 to 50 gallons of sap per gallon of syrup. These trees tap beautifully in early spring, and if you've got them on your property, they're definitely worth experimenting with. The syrup tends to be darker than maple with a more robust, almost savory quality that works wonderfully in cooking applications. Butternut trees, also called white walnut, produce another rare and expensive syrup. You're looking at $35 to $50 for a small bottle, when you can find it at all. The flavor is delicate and sweet with subtle nutty undertones, lighter than black walnut but more complex than maple. Unfortunately, butternut trees have been devastated by butternut canker disease, which makes the trees themselves increasingly rare. This adds to the syrup's scarcity and price. If you're lucky enough to have healthy butternut trees, they can be tapped in early spring, but always make sure you're not stressing already vulnerable trees. Heartnut trees, which are actually a variety of Japanese walnut that's become popular in North American permaculture plantings, can also be tapped for syrup. Now, this is probably the least known syrup on the list, and the prices can vary quite a bit, anywhere from $30 to $70, depending on the producer. The flavor is, mild and just a little sweet, with a creamy finish. Since heartnut cultivation is still pretty uncommon here in the United States, the syrup is more of a curiosity than a commercial product. But, as more folks start planting these trees for their delicious heart-shaped nuts, I really think we'll see more syrup production in the next few years. Here's an exotic one, Acer truncatum or Purpleblow Maple, native to Asia but increasingly planted in North America for its ornamental value and drought tolerance. The syrup is exceptionally rare, commanding prices of $40 to $80 for small bottles. It has a unique flavor that's lighter and more floral than sugar maple syrup. What makes this particularly interesting for us gardeners is that these trees are more heat and drought tolerant than traditional sugar maples, potentially making them valuable for syrup production as our climate changes. The tapping season and yields are similar to other maples. While most tree syrups come from temperate climates, palm syrup deserves mention because it's made from the sap of various palm species, particularly date palms and coconut palms. In areas where it's produced, you'll pay $15 to $40 per bottle. It has a rich caramel-like flavor with notes of toffee and brown sugar. This won't be something most of us can produce unless we're gardening in zones 9 through 11, but it's worth knowing about as part of the global tradition of tree syrup making. The process involves tapping the flower stalks of palm trees and collecting the sap, which is then boiled down. Finally, we have ironwood syrup, which is so rare that even finding reliable information about it is challenging. Ironwood, or hornbeam trees, can theoretically be tapped, and the few producers who've experimented with it report prices exceeding $50 per half pint. The flavor is described as delicate with honey-like notes. The challenge with ironwood is that the trees are relatively small, the sap flow is minimal, and the sugar content is low. This makes it more of a curiosity for dedicated experimenters than a viable syrup source, but it shows just how many possibilities exist in the world of tree tapping. The world of tree syrups is so much bigger than most Americans realize, and the prices reflect not just rarity, but the incredible amount of work and natural resources required to produce these special foods. Whether you're looking to tap your own trees or simply want to expand your culinary horizons, these syrups offer flavors and experiences you won't find anywhere else. If this exploration into rare tree syrups has gotten you as excited as I am, make sure to subscribe to Roothaven Grounds for more deep dives into the amazing things we can grow, harvest, and create right in our own backyards. Share this with your fellow gardening enthusiasts, and let's keep learning together. Until next time, keep your hands in the soil and your eyes on the trees.